By the early 1950s, Sinatra wasn't Sinatra. He was a washed-up singer with a fading voice, a messy personal life, and a long list of people who didn't want him anywhere near a microphone. His marriage scandals hit the papers. His radio show died. MGM dropped him. Columbia Records dropped him. Nightclubs stopped booking him because he wasn't filling seats anymore. The kid, who once caused riots outside theaters, was now performing in rooms where the applause sounded like silverware hitting plates. Agents called him finished. Studio heads labeled him bad publicity. Newspapers said he had turned into a has-been at 35. Sinatra knew it. Everyone knew it. And he knew exactly where his lifeline was. He didn't look to Hollywood. He didn't look to the music industry. He didn't look to managers. He looked to New Jersey, to the men he'd grown up around, the ones who always kept their word. Sinatra didn't just know mob guys. He grew up with them. He was from Hoboken, a town where politicians, union men, bookmakers, and racketeers all ate in the same restaurants. One of Sinatra's earliest and closest supporters was Willie Moretti, an underboss in the Genovese family. Moretti didn't just like Sinatra, he protected him. At press events, if reporters got too loud, Moretti told them to shut their mouths. He was known to say, "Frank's a good boy. You treat him right." And people did. Moretti helped Sinatra get early gigs. He helped him avoid harassment. He opened doors. Sinatra didn't have the power to open himself. That was the foundation of Sinatra's network, and he knew how strong it was. But by the early 50s, Sinatra needed more than friendship. He needed salvation. And salvation came in the form of one opportunity, a movie role that would resurrect his career, if he could get it. In 1951, Sinatra wanted one thing, the role of Angelo Maggio in From Here to Eternity. If he got it, it would put him back on top. But Columbia Pictures wasn't interested. Harry Cohn, the studio boss, had no reason to take a risk on a singer whose best days were behind him. He didn't like Sinatra. He didn't trust him. And he didn't think Sinatra could bring in money. To Hollywood, Sinatra was a problem. To Sinatra, Hollywood was a brick wall. The official story says Sinatra begged for the role. Some say he cried in meetings. Some say he pleaded for one last chance. Some say Ava Gardner pushed the studio behind the scenes. But there's another version, the version whispered in back rooms, printed in old columns, and traced through FBI files. Sinatra didn't go to Hollywood. He went to the people Hollywood feared, the people who didn't take no from anyone. There's an old rumor, famous enough to make it into pop culture, that mob figures persuaded Harry Cohn to cast Sinatra. Not with violence, not with threats, just pressure, the kind only certain men could apply. And the rumor spread so far that it became a punchline. They made him an offer he couldn't refuse. It wasn't true in the Godfather sense, but it wasn't nothing either. FBI files confirm this much. Sinatra met with known mobsters during this period. They discussed his career. They had influence in Vegas and entertainment circuits. They wanted him back on top. They made calls on his behalf. The truth sits in the middle, not as dramatic as the legend, not as clean as the studio version. But one thing is certain. Sinatra knew exactly who would help him when the world stopped listening. And he went to them. When Sinatra finally got the part of Maggio in From Here to Eternity, nobody expected much. Not the studio, not the critics, not even Sinatra. But when the movie hit theaters, everything changed. Sinatra wasn't washed up anymore. He wasn't the kid with the microphone. He wasn't the tabloid mess Hollywood mocked. He was an actor, a good one. The performance was raw, desperate, and angry. It felt like a man fighting for his life, because he was. In 1954, Sinatra won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. One night changed everything. The phone started ringing again. Record labels wanted him back. Clubs that banned him now begged for him. Hollywood shifted from ignoring him to calling him a genius. He wasn't finished anymore. He was reborn. But comebacks don't come free. Not in the entertainment world. Not in Vegas. Not when your friends are men who run entire cities after midnight. Sinatra didn't just return to music. He took over Las Vegas. But here's what people forget. Vegas in the 50s wasn't casinos and tourists. It was mob territory. The Stardust. The Sands. The Riviera. The Flamingo. They weren't run by corporations. They were run by men like Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel's remaining crew, Johnny Roselli, Sam Giancana, the same men who controlled skim operations, unions, entertainers, and the backroom numbers that never made it onto casino books. No performer could survive in Vegas without being approved by the people who controlled the hotels, Sinatra included. And Sinatra didn't just accept this. He embraced it. He flew on mob-owned planes. He stayed in mob-owned suites. He ate in mob-protected restaurants. He performed in mob-run casinos. He didn't hide the connections. He lived in them. When Sinatra walked into a Vegas showroom, the entire staff snapped into formation. Why? Because everyone knew who he walked in with. By the early 1960s, Sinatra's closest link to the underworld was Sam Giancana, the boss of the Chicago outfit. Giancana wasn't a background figure. He was the real thing, violent, unpredictable, powerful, and he liked Sinatra, liked the music, liked the attitude, liked having a superstar around. When Sinatra bought the Cal Neva Lodge, a casino and resort on the California-Nevada border, he made Giancana a silent partner. Sinatra denied it publicly. The FBI didn't buy it. They followed Sinatra everywhere: nightclubs, airports, hotel lobbies, backstage rooms. They listened in on calls. They documented every interaction. Sinatra's FBI file is over 1,000 pages long. Not because he was a criminal, but because he was a man who knew criminals, powerful ones. In 1962, Sinatra invited JFK to the Cal Neva. He wanted to impress him, show him the property, show him the empire he built. But the moment the White House learned Giancana was involved, Sinatra was cut off. Cold. Bobby Kennedy told JFK, "You're not going anywhere near a man with mob ties." And that was it. JFK avoided Sinatra for the rest of his presidency. Sinatra had built a runway at his home in Palm Springs, just for JFK's helicopter. The Secret Service never landed there. They redirected the president to stay with Bing Crosby, JFK's political opposite, just to avoid the Sinatra-Giancana connection. Sinatra smashed the runway lights with a sledgehammer. That's how deep the wound went. And Giancana? He saw an opportunity. He reminded Sinatra of the old days, the days when Sinatra needed help, the days when Sinatra wasn't the chairman of the board, but a fading singer begging for survival. Giancana asked for favors, introductions, meetings, connections with politicians. Sinatra didn't like it, but he owed him, at least in Giancana's mind. By the mid-60s, Sinatra was at the peak of his fame. The Rat Pack ruled Vegas. The movies were hits. The concerts sold out. But behind the scenes, Sinatra was under more pressure than ever. The FBI watching him. The mob calling him. Politicians using him. Reporters circling. Hollywood whispering. Vegas bosses wanting pieces of him. The same men who helped raise him back up were now pulling at him from every direction. Sinatra wasn't just a singer anymore. He was a man standing in the middle of three worlds: Hollywood, Washington, and the underworld. And sooner or later, those worlds were going to collide. The Cal Neva Lodge should have been Sinatra's victory lap, a casino by the lake, a retreat for celebrities. A playground for politicians. A symbol that he wasn't just back. He was untouchable. But in 1963, the cracks finally showed. The FBI discovered Giancana on the property. Sinatra denied knowing anything. The FBI didn't buy it. Nevada's Gaming Commission didn't buy it. California officials didn't buy it. You didn't get your gaming license pulled for nothing. On July 30th, 1963, Sinatra's license was revoked. He was forced to give up ownership. He got humiliated, not by the law, but by association. Giancana had been spotted sitting near the pool with Phyllis McGuire, Sinatra's friend, and one of the McGuire sisters. That was enough for the government. Sinatra lost the Calneva. Giancana didn't care. The outfit didn't care. But the FBI cared a lot. His comeback came with a new price tag. He was tied to the most watched man in America, Sam Giancana. Frank Sinatra wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a mobster. He never ordered violence. He never ran rackets. But he was connected. Not to soldiers. Not to small-time guys. To bosses. And the FBI didn't monitor you for who you were. They monitored you for who you stood next to. Agents documented. Every dinner with Giancana. Every party Sinatra hosted. Every Rat Pack gathering. Every Vegas appearance. Every backstage interaction. Every phone call they could intercept. Sinatra once said, "I don't know any criminals. I know nice guys who were accused of crime." The FBI rolled their eyes at that one. It didn't matter whether Sinatra was guilty of anything. Being adjacent was enough. Being friendly was enough. Being useful to the wrong man was enough. The Bureau saw Sinatra as a bridge between legitimate America and the world they were trying to destroy. And nobody walks away clean from that bridge. Sinatra knew Giancana wasn't just a risk. He was a time bomb. Giancana saw Sinatra's fame as currency. A tool. A door opener. A way to impress people who wanted a taste of show business. Sinatra saw Giancana as a friend who didn't understand boundaries. The relationship slowly cracked. When JFK cut Sinatra off, Giancana laughed. When Washington began circling Sinatra, Giancana didn't step back. He leaned in. And Sinatra couldn't handle it anymore. He distanced himself. Cut ties. Stopped taking calls. Stopped meeting in public. Stopped giving Giancana access to his world. Giancana didn't get angry. He got disappointed. Disappointment is worse in that line of work. By the late 60s, Giancana fled the United States after legal pressure mounted. Sinatra didn't chase him. Didn't write. Didn't call. When Giancana returned secretly to the United States, years later, Sinatra wasn't anywhere near him. The singer had outgrown the world he once leaned on. But here's the truth. Sinatra never spoke against the mob. Not once. Not in interviews. Not in memoirs. Not to the FBI. Not in private. He distanced himself. But he never turned. That's the line he refused to cross. Not because he was scared. Because he knew the code. He grew up around it. He benefited from it. He owed parts of his comeback to it. The one rule Sinatra never broke was the one rule that raised him. Never betray the men who helped you. People like to pretend Sinatra's comeback was pure talent, pure persistence, pure Hollywood drama. That makes the story clean, safe, comfortable. But the real version isn't clean. He was drowning. He was ignored. He was finished. And when the industry turned its back, Sinatra made the call that countless entertainers made in that era. He went to the men who didn't need a casting director's approval, the men who didn't read Variety, the men who didn't care about public opinion, the men who still believed in him. Sinatra didn't become the chairman of the board by accident. He became Sinatra again because of a role he fought for, a studio he pressured, a network he inherited, and a group of men who never let the door close completely. The comeback was real, the price was real, and the connections? They never truly went away. In the end, Sinatra walked the only line he knew, loved by America, watched by the FBI, respected by the men who once saved his career, and never forgot it.